Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video on my channel, Hairliciously. If you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe so you guys are updated on hair loss and hair transplant topics, as well as updates on current hair loss treatments in the pipeline. Visit my website at hairliciously.com to purchase your microneedling device, which is scientifically proven to stimulate hair growth, my low-level laser therapy cap, DHT Rogaine shampoo, conditioner, and serum, hair growth vitamins, and a few other products to help those who are losing hair. So guys, it's actually been a while since I've last posted a video on my channel, and if some of you guys have already noticed by now, my second daughter was born about a week ago, so everything's just been really hectic. There's been a lot of sleepless nights, but I will tell you that it's been getting better. I am back again with a new video, and hopefully I will be able to continue this momentum and keep you guys updated with the latest hair loss and hair transplant content. So in today's video, I wanted to share with you yet another incredible hair loss reversal transformation. This is by far one of the best results that I've seen from just conventional hair loss treatment. And it's just amazing, even to this day, to see how well somebody can actually respond to just medication, all without the intervention of a hair transplant. Unfortunately, not everybody is, obviously going to be a hyper responder, and those with a moderate degree of hair loss more than likely would have to incorporate hair transplant in conjunction with hair loss treatments to see optimal results. But I think it's always worth sharing because it can be a great source of motivation for those who are, still kind of like hesitant about going through pharmacological intervention to treat androgenetic alopecia. So this is a post that I found a few days ago on Reddit's subpage Trestless. This is Reddit's most popular community for males and females who are suffering from hair loss. The post was titled Progress January 2022 to September 2022. Minoxidil, finasteride, microneedling. I go out without a hat. I was depressed for a few months in between and lost some gains. Hang in there, people. And then here's his before photo. As you guys can clearly see, there is a lot of miniaturization going on. First off, his hairline is just completely wiped out except for kind of like that forelock that's holding onto the ear alive. And that too has been obviously, progressively miniaturizing and will eventually disappear had this guy not started his hair loss treatment regimen. Now, I'm not exactly too sure why some of the people who are suffering from hair loss kind of still hang on to that forelock, but it's typically not the norm. The mid-scalp is also balding pretty bad. You can see that he's rocking some type of comb-over type of hairstyle to cover his mid-scalp. But it's also clear to see that he's at least a Nord 5 vertex, maybe even a Nord 6 in a couple years. And this type of hair loss pattern will eventually make its way to the dreaded Nord 7. The crown is also thinning pretty significantly, as we can see a large visible bald spot. And it's just really unfortunate that this guy, for whatever reason, has held off from hair loss treatment and waited this long before he took action. Personally, just can't imagine somebody waiting this far out to start hair loss treatment because, by the time your hair looks something like that, I'm sure that most people are just going to throw in the towel and just call it quits. And at this point, most people would probably just shave it off knowing that they've already gone past the point of no return. In my case, I started noticing my hair loss in my early 20s in college. I've always had a big forehead, and over the years, just styling my hair just got more and more difficult. And one day, I just kind of looked straight in the mirror with my head kind of tilted down, and I just recognized this dreaded M-shaped hair loss pattern. And I honestly was in denial at first until one of my college roommates pointed out to the fact that I was actually losing hair on the temples. And that basically kind of confirmed it for me back then. I was probably like a Nord 2, but since I had a pretty big forehead, it kind of made it look a lot worse since the forehead was so wide and so high up. So even for me, like I caught into my hair loss relatively early. I was just scrutinizing my hair loss on a daily basis. For most people, once you lose about 40% of your native hairs, you start to see a visible representation cosmetically of the damage that is done due to miniaturization. But like I said, this guy just waited way too long to actually take action. But it is a good thing that this guy finally initiated this hair loss treatment regimen. It's always better to start early than never or later. But after just 9 months of treatment being on minoxidil, finasteride, microneedling, he was literally able to resurrect his hair follicles back from the dead. And just look at how much hairs he was able to revive with the said treatment. His crown area has significantly increased in density as well as his mid-scalp. If you look at his hairline, the temporal regions that were once void of hair has just miraculously filled in, and you can actually see a hairline to the point where he's somewhere around a number 3 with some obvious thinning in the mid-scalp. If you compare his before and after photo, there's just so much hairs that have grown in at just 9 months, to the point where further prolonged treatment could potentially regrow even more hairs in thinning areas, to the point where a hair transplant won't even, be warranted. And just from like a hair transplant point of view, he's got to have saved at least like 3,000 to 4,000 grafts easily, which also means that he saved a lot of money that would have gone towards a hair transplant, all thanks to the hair loss treatment regimen, which probably doesn't even cost more than like $70, $80 per month. So going through the comments, his specific regimen consisted of microneedling once a week at 1.5 millimeter, minoxidil 5% twice a day, finasteride 1 milligram once a day, and Nizer shampoo at least twice a week. This is commonly referred to as the Big 3 treatment, minus the microneedling. But as you guys probably know by now, I am a huge advocate when it comes to incorporating microneedling into one's hair loss treatment regimen. And honestly speaking, like, they should just call it the Big 4. And the interesting thing about this guy was the fact that when he is microneedling, he doesn't actually get any pinpoint bleeding, but rather just redness or erythema. And most of the scientific studies available on microneedling that we typically see achieve just erythema and not any bleeding. And for some users, this seems to be more than enough to just induce growth factors and stimulation, especially when it's used in conjunction with minoxidil. With that said, I've also seen other users who microneedle extensively to the point where like they won't complete their session until their scalps are just covered in blood. In my case, there are certain areas on my scalp, typically kind of like on the sides, where I do get some pinpoint bleeding, but there are also areas throughout the scalp where it just gets red and just doesn't bleed all the time. And it really kind of depends on each person. Some people have thicker or thinner scalps, and that can also influence the level of needle penetration that can induce bleeding. Some stick with a different needle length other than the standard 1.5 millimeter. And they still claim to, be good responders to treatment. Others press pretty hard with their devices and varying frequency on each area of application. Other people just microneedle more than once a week. So, it kind of varies to a degree. But with that said, most studies out there on microneedling reference 1.5 as the standard protocol. And most also stick with enough application per area to just cause erythema and or pinpoint bleeding. And that seems to be the general consensus that most people stick with. He's also using 5% topical minoxidil twice a day. I highly recommend the foam version as opposed to the liquid version, since the foam tends to kind of dry up quicker and it's not going to be as greasy. I think most people can probably get by using minoxidil once a day given its longer half-life. And it's fortunate that this guy is a good responder to minoxidil, because depending on available data, the efficacy of minoxidil varies from like 20 to 40%. So it is relatively low. And this all depends on the level of sulfotransferase enzyme activity in the hair follicles. So if you genetically don't have sufficient levels of this enzyme, you obviously won't be a good responder. But lucky enough, there are still ways that you guys can try to manipulate it through tretinoin application, or even bypass it with just taking a low dosage of oral minoxidil. But luckily for him, he's seen some pretty crazy improvement due to the synergistic effect of hair loss medication. He is also taking 1 milligram finasteride once a day. This is a drug that I would recommend people take at a minimum if you are starting to notice hair loss. It works well in the majority of users in slowing down hair loss, and side effects typically are minimal. Before I replaced oral finasteride with my current topical dutasteride, I was taking 0.5 milligram of finasteride daily. There are several studies out there that show that 0.5 milligram versus 1 milligram finasteride is pretty negligible in terms of scalp DHT inhibition. So I would highly recommend anyone taking finasteride to lower the dosage to 0.5 milligram, especially if they are wary of potential side effects. I've also taken finasteride for well over like 4 to 5 years, and I can honestly say that I did not suffer from any side effects, nor have I experienced any while taking topical dutasteride. Anyway, he also mentioned that he was depressed for a few months and wasn't doing anything in terms of treatment, and that had he continued to stick with his treatment, he claims he probably could have seen better results. The important thing here to notice, though, is that he tells us that his depression was not related to finasteride. There are cases where some users have noted depression as a result of finasteride usage. And, based on several studies, 5-AR inhibitors are known to affect neurosteroids by inhibiting the conversion of progesterone into dihydroprogesterone, which metabolizes into allopregnanolone. And low levels of allopregnanolone have been associated with depression. It also downregulates the GABA A receptor expression, which can affect mood and cognition. But I always like to mention that side effects are relatively uncommon, and people who are deciding on hopping on finasteride just kind of really need to weigh the pros and cons, because not everyone is going to be a good fit, and it ultimately comes down to your risk tolerance. Now, I will also note though that the chances of becoming depressed are probably higher from not taking finasteride and just losing hair compared to those who are actually taking it. And then scrolling down, someone asked what his age is and when he started balding. So he is currently 41 years of age, and he started balding around 20. And just going back, it's pretty crazy that he literally waited 20 years to take action to treat his hair loss. And he's very lucky, because most people are not going to be responders like this guy did, especially 20 years after losing a good chunk of his hair. Someone asked, when did you start seeing gains? About 6 months in. And then, the rest of the comments are just people repeating some of the questions that were already answered, or just telling him how crazy of a transformation he's had. So, at the end of the day, this guy has just had an incredible transformation by pharmacological intervention, in addition to, microneedling, his nicer shampoo, all in the span of just 9 months. He's definitely a hyper responder that we typically don't see in the majority of people. But, it really does go to show that some people do respond extremely favorably with treatment, to the point where a good number of hairs lost can be brought back after being dormant for just so many years. 20 years plus in this guy's case, which is a long, long time. I think as long as he is consistent with his treatment, maybe add in an anti-androgen and possibly even a hair transplant to add in density to any thinning areas. If he wants to beef up the hairline, this guy should be set for many years to come. Given that he's only 9 months into his treatment, there is a chance that he may continue to see even further improvement to density. So I am super happy to see results like this, because it really just gives me motivation, and also to others, to give finasteride, dutasteride, microneedling, minoxidil a try. And if you're genetically lucky enough, you may actually be a hyper responder yourself and see incredible improvement. Anyway, guys, that wraps up this video. Let me know what you guys think of this guy's transformation. Make sure to leave me some comments in the comment section below. Make sure to hit that like button, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Take care, guys.